You are here today for our presentation, The Anatomy of Email Deliverability, which is something that every marketer should be paying attention to and be knowledgeable of. And with that, we'd love to introduce ourselves today. My name is Hank Hoffmeyer. I'm the digital marketing infotainer because I like to make marketing fun and successful, but I'm going to let you be the judge of that. I'm also the senior manager of client solutions at J2 Global, which also owns Campaigner. That's why I'm here today. And I'm joined by Lauren Meyer here today, and I'm going to let her introduce herself.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, my name is Lauren Meyer. I am a devoted email geek and also a pizza lover. So please talk to me about that after this session. I've been working in email for about 14 years, typically on the sender side. So either working for ESPs in their compliance or anti-abuse or deliverability teams, consulting with clients, and also actually sending emails myself as a marketer in some cases. I'm an active member of the email community, serving on committees with industry groups including MOG and the newly formed Email Metrics Project, which is going to be introduced in the near future by the Only Influencers group. So stay tuned for that. And I've been working at Kickbox for about the past 10 months as their VP of Industry Relations and Compliance. Really, my goal with this role is to consult with our clients, to talk about deliverability as often as possible, including this webinar, and then also just to work with our engineering team to really just help us continue to develop the deliverability monitoring suite that we released over the summer. So it's a little bit about me.
What is your favorite topping, Lauren? Mine is pepperoni.
Definitely pepperoni as well. Yeah, you got to go with pepperoni. Yeah, I do like. There's this one that I had in New York that's pepperoni, and then they also kind of put some little bits of like jalapeno pepper, and then they drizzle it with honey as well.
Nice.
It's watering now, so we should probably get back to deliverability for just a little bit, right?
Folks in the audience, what is your favorite pizza topping? Or maybe you don't like pizza and you can let us know that, but what is your favorite pizza topping? Love to hear that because maybe I can try something new. I've come to like pizza with pepperoni and onions too. There's this one local place that puts onions on it, which is good. I like that. So let us know what your favorite topping is. And folks, if you do not work with us at Kickbox or Campaigner, please check us out. If you want to send better emails, look up Campaigner and have a discussion with me if you want. And if you're looking to send emails to the right people, make sure it's not going to spam or you're sending to people that don't exist, look at Kickbox because we can both help you on either aspect. So let's talk about email marketing today. I don't know about you, but I send a lot of emails, whether it's as a marketer or personally and slash business. I just send a lot of emails and I've been doing this for 10 plus years. I kind of think of and know what happens in the background when I'm preparing an email, when I click send and then it goes off and it's received by the recipient server. I kind of know all these things that happen in between, but I realize a lot of marketers probably don't think about that. They just put a list in the system, they create an email, send it, and look at their metrics, right? That's what the average marketer does. They don't think like me or like Lauren, because she's probably doing the same thing I do, is analyzing everything that's happening and saying, hey, how can I do better at this thing called email marketing? And it's not simple, it's not easy, but we want to talk to you today about things that you need to be doing to make sure your email is effective, but also gets into the inbox rather than the spam folder. That dreaded spam folder, or worse, the abyss, the black hole, the universe of nothing. That can happen, folks. And today we're going to tell you some things that are going to help you. Let's take a look at what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about items that you should be looking at before you hit send. Yes, before you hit send. And that's technical items that you'll need to set up. Your reputation. I'm not talking about your personal reputation. Yeah, sure. I think you're a nice person. Everybody here is probably a nice person. But what is it when it comes to your emails and your IP and your domain reputation? We're going to cover that and then some other miscellaneous items. And then after you hit send, we're going to talk about the coded language that happens between the two servers. You know, what languages do they speak? And it's not the language of love, trust me. Then we have filters that are going to filter in or out your emails. And then you want to look at your metrics. And then last, the bare bones, what are things that you need to be doing all the time? And what tools can you use to help you further the improvement of your email campaigns? Email deliverability happens before you hit send, not when you hit send or while it's in transit. It happens before because you can affect what's going to happen. Let's take a look at some technical items you need to set up on your email campaigns. And this is when you select an email service provider. The first thing is called SPF, or Sender Policy Framework. say you're using Campaigner and you send an email out. If you do not have SPF, the recipient server is going to say, hey, this email was sent by ABC company, but Campaigner's actually sending it. They're the one who's delivering this email. Does Campaigner have permission to send this email? Yes or no? And what this is just a bit of code or a string of text that is on your domain or slash hosting provider, depending on how you're set up. And it basically just says, Campaigner has permission to send my emails, or whatever ESP you're using. That one's very easy to set up, and it's something you should be setting up. Then we have DKIM, Domain Keys Identified Mail. This simply means that the email has not been altered when it left the server until it was received by the recipient server. It was not injected with malware, changed in any way, or the name didn't change, the email address where it's coming from has not changed. It's kind of like encryption end to end. Nothing has changed between when it was sent and when it was received. And last, kind of optional, but I still feel is important, is called DMARC, Domain-Based Message Authentication, Reporting, and Conformance. It's kind of a tongue twister, but that is something that is in place that says, hey, if SPF and DKIM is failed, what should we do with this email? Should we accept it? Should we quarantine it? Should we ignore it? Again, kind of optional, but I think with all three of these, it's kind of the trifecta. You are going to get more of your emails to be delivered to the inbox. And Lauren has a treat for us next, and she's going to talk about another cool item that's up and coming.
Yes, yes, yeah. So once you have put in all of the work to set up your SPF and your DKIM and your DMARC, which again is optional but is highly recommended, you're going to come out the other side with a sending domain that is properly authenticated and well protected from spoofing and phishing and all of that stuff that you don't want to deal with, right? And you're going to be primed to pick up this reward that is just really there for you being a good email citizen, somebody who's authenticated, right? It's called BIMI, which stands for Brand Indicators for Message Identification. Much like DMARC, DKIM, and SPF, BIMI is a text record that just lives on your servers, right? So it's pretty simple to set up in that sense. But BIMI is different in that it also allows you to display your company logo in supported inboxes, putting your brand front and center for your subscribers. So if we look at that left and right screen, you can see how the image just pops, right? The logo is easily identifiable, and it's really awesome. And you can actually control that logo across all the places that it's going to show up. And this is a really great one. You could even have seasonal logos at some point, right? At the time you get to the pumpkin spice latte season, go ahead and have that be your logo instead of Starbucks. Anything you want is kind of really possible when it comes to that little section of the inbox. And a couple of things that you want to have in place first here, you're going to need to have authentication records, right? So you have to set up your SPF, your DKIM, and your DMARC, and they need to be properly set up. You need to have access to your domain's name servers, so you can set up that BIMI DNS record, that text record that's going to be in place. You also need to use an SVG file on your logo. So that's something you can kind of look up after the fact. And you need to have a good sender reputation. And this is one of those that really isn't the case with the other forms of authentication. Once you kind of plug them in, they're there and they're part of your program. BIMI really requires you to have the authentication standards set up, but then also to just be a good email sender. So if you don't see your logo that's showing up, even though you've taken all the proper steps, you might want to take a look back into your sender metrics. We're going to talk a little bit more about this later, but really try to figure out what is going on and why you're not seeing that. Currently, Yahoo is the only mailbox provider that's openly supporting BIMI, but Google recently announced the start of a pilot program as well. So we're really expecting adoption to grow a lot as we head into 2021 and beyond. So really excited about this lovely thing called BIMI. So moving back into
you, Lauren, on the information for BIMI, and then also thank you, a sarcastic one, for making me hungry talking about pumpkin spice lattes,
right?
because also the chat room's getting me hungry. Buffalo chicken and quail eggs. I'm gonna have to try either of those on a pizza. Yeah, if you haven't looked, Lauren, while I'm talking, you might want to go take a look at some of the tips there on toppings for pizza. So did you know we're going to talk about great pizza today along with email deliverability? I think they both go together great.
A shout out. He says Hawaiian, but there's a question mark there. So I'm not sure if that's because he loves Hawaiian or because he's questioning that. So yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna try some of those, man. There's some great barbecue chicken. I'm seeing a whole bunch of great stuff. So thank you, folks. And Bimmy is gonna be a great way for you to identify yourself in the inbox and let people trust you more. And with Gmail, there's kind of a way to do it now, but it's so tricky. Nobody even knows where it pulls from, the logo. It's like, where does this come from? And we try different things and it just never works. But all of a sudden it magically appears and you're like, which one was it? But once Bimmy's implemented and Gmail uses it, it's great all around. Let's talk about this authentication that we were just talking about, kind of like just a simple way of looking at what happens when you send an email, because that's what we said we're going to talk about today. You have your server that you're sending from, or your provider sends out the email and it's got the SPF and DKIM on it, or maybe it doesn't. The recipient server is going to look at that, and let's say that that information is not there and that particular server is not going to accept that email because it doesn't meet their guidelines. They're going to push it back or just remove it, and you may or may not get a bounce back saying this was not accepted because of authentication issues, or we don't trust your service, or it looks like spam to us. And that's because you do not have SPF and DKIM set up. And if it is set up, or it's not set up, it may actually get through the server, and then they check for the DMARC. Hey, if DMARC is set up, it says, hey, if we receive an email, it doesn't have these two set up, let's go ahead and quarantine this. Folks can go look at this later and then come back and decide if they want to read that or not. And apparently a lot of people don't look for those. It's kind of like a black hole. And there's a possibility even further down the road, even if you meet all of these, that you could still go to the spam folder, and that's based on other items that we're going to talk about in a little while, like your content and other things. But hopefully everybody's email is getting into the inbox, because that's where all marketers want to be, in the inbox. And now what we want to do is move on to talk about reputation, and Lauren's going to help us out there.
Yeah. And so, sender reputation, it's not exactly the same as, your reputation as a person, as Hank already pointed out. And it's maybe a little bit different from your reputation at work as well. But in a lot of ways, it's very similar, right? The positive actions that you take can improve the way that people interact with you, which could lead to more responsibility, or maybe even a promotion at work, or just like a more fulfilling life that's filled with lots of loved ones and happy times and all that good stuff, right? The negative actions that you take in your personal life can impact trust, right? Which is going to lead to less positive interactions with your friends and loved ones, or perhaps lead to an uncomfortable situation at work as well. So just like in life, there are, just so many little decisions and opportunities that you have to either make an impact on those around you in a positive way or a negative one, and ultimately like form that reputation as a person. People sort of know what to expect from you over time because they've kind of had interactions with you in the past. Well, within email, there are literally hundreds of factors that come together to influence your sender reputation as well. And that reputation is what's going to determine if the message is going to be delivered to the inbox of your recipients or not, right? And so there's two main types of reputation that mailbox providers are really kind of mainly looking at to make that decision. And the first is IP reputation, followed by domain reputation as well. So we'll kind of get into both of those. Okay, cool. So IP address. Oh, there we go. No, we're moving a little too fast. Okay, let's go back to IP reputation, right? So this is tied to a particular server address, and that allows the mailbox providers to kind of start analyzing whether the sender is trustworthy, right? It's kind of like the beginning of the conversation. You can send through one IP or multiple, depending on your sending volume, and you can also send through shared IPs or dedicated IPs. Companies who send infrequently or kind of have like very small volumes of recipients that they're sending to quite often can benefit from a shared IP reputation. But those actions are combined to kind of generate enough activity for the mailbox providers to sort of form an opinion on the overall kind of sender reputation that's behind that IP. But figure when you're sending from shared IPs, you do run that risk of facing deliverability issues due to bad actions of fellow senders that are on that same shared IP, right? Imagine a busy city bus. All it takes is just one smelly guy to ruin the entire experience for everybody on that day, right? So since shared IPs can kind of suffer from bad actions of other senders, high volume senders or people who can support their own sender reputation really typically send from a dedicated IP address, and that sort of kind of shields them from the impacts of all those other bad actors. So it's really important for companies to send their marketing and transactional emails from separate IPs. This is kind of a standard practice, and really the point of this is you want to kind of separate those really important emails like password resets or purchase confirmations, things that people are truly expecting to receive, from those kind of riskier behaviors that might take place on the marketing side, right? Definitely much more important to get one of those types of mail than the other. And so then when we switch over to domain reputation, mailbox providers really have started to become a little bit more sophisticated over the last several years. Domain reputation has become much more important. I would say this is definitely true of places like Gmail and kind of those kind of more B2C types of places, but really every mailbox provider is looking at domains in some sort of way, and so are third-party filtering services. The tricky part is, since your domain reputation is tied to your sending domain, which in most cases is also tied to your company's website, this can follow you. So any bad actions that you have with that reputation are going to follow you, even if you switch IPs, even if you switch email service providers and kind of try to run away from that bad reputation. So that's why incorporating good sending practices is so important to continuing to have this better domain reputation. I think it's just going to be continuing to have great adoption over time. So you need to bake this into your current strategy as quickly as possible. And kind of while we're on the topic of domain reputation, similar to what I just said about the IPs, it really is a good idea to kind of separate the domain reputation of your marketing and your transactional emails, so that you can kind of have just that separation again, right? So ISPs can really tell the difference between those password resets and a marketing newsletter. They can see it in your stats and the user reactions. They can also just see it in the content that's being sent. So the best way to do this is to really use like a subdomain that's under the top level domain where your website is hosted. This is just such a better way than if you have kind of one of those lookalike domains where it's kind of like I don't know, what would it be? Campaigner-email.com or something like that. Yes, it looks like your brand, it has your brand name in there, but really it looks a lot more like somebody who's pretending to be you. And so you might have somebody who's actually flagging your mail as fish, which is very damaging to your deliverability. Or they kind of just lose trust in that mail over time and they're kind of a little bit suspicious of it. So the Gmails of the world really are already identifying between the different mail streams, but really, even just for the sake of your users, I would suggest that you kind of get ahead of that and really try to separate those mail streams, make it as clear and kind of organized as possible, so that it's just really easy for everybody to understand what's going on.
Great job talking about the reputation of a sender, what your IP and your domain reputation. But I like to put it in simpler terms. I like to look at it as a credit score. It's like when you have a credit card or you have a loan, you get good credit when you pay it off on time or you make your payments on time. Same thing when you don't pay on time, it affects your credit score. What are some things, folks, in the chat, in the question section, what are some good things that happen to an email when you send it? Right, we have opens, right? We have clicks. Is there anything else that's good? And what I'm setting you up for is there's also bad things that happen to an email. And I'm looking for a specific one. I know with bad things, there's what? Email bounces. And what else is there when it comes to negative? So go ahead into the chat and let us know what you're talking about here. Spam complaints, negative. Conversion is positive, yes. What else? Block bounces, yes. We got clicks, we got forwards, we got mark as important. There's an important one for positive, and it's called tins. This is not spam. Folks, when people go into the spam folder, especially in Gmail, and they mark your message as not spam, it actually gives you a lot of credit, or your credit score goes up, or your reputation goes up. And some of the negative things are going to be ignored. John got it on the spot, which is what I was looking for. So you got bounces, spam complaints, unsubscribes, but actually ignoring your emails is just as detrimental, because if a majority of your folks are ignoring your email, Gmail doesn't want you to be sending to folks in their domain because they think that you're irrelevant. So what you want to do is make sure a lot of the good things are happening. Opens, clicks, forward, star, mark as important, tins, versus your unsubscribes, spam complaints, bounces, and worse, ignoring your emails. So make sure you're providing the best possible frequency and generally good, valuable content so that people keep interacting with your emails, and identify those that have not, and maybe perform list hygiene with them. A couple of other factors before you hit send is look at your text to image ratio. You should have a 60-40 split, 40% image, 60% text. This is kind of an old trick that spammers use because they found out that the algorithm was looking at words or the text in an email and pulling out the spam keywords, and then they would just put it and superimpose it on the images and put the images in there. Therefore, if your email has a lot of images and you have text over them, etc., it's going to be measured as spam, and you don't want that to happen. Now, you may say, hey, you know what? We do send emails with a lot of images and they get to the inbox. That's because your domain and sender reputation is probably very high, and that's okay. Size. I'm having trouble hearing you. I think that was my Siri there. Sorry about that. She's having trouble hearing me, but I was speaking very loudly. I'm going to turn that over so that she can ignore me now. Email size. Yes, size matters here. Folks, if you take your content, say your HTML, and you put it in a text file and you look at the properties, if it's over 102 kilobits, what happens is it's going to get cut off in the inbox. The worst thing that happens with that is, number one, they're not going to read your full message unless they click view full email. And worse yet, the unsubscribe button is going to be hidden and people will probably mark your message as spam. And then stay away from a lot of those spam keywords. It's not as prevalent as in the past. You could put free in all caps in the subject line and use a couple exclamation points, but don't overdo it and don't use a lot of spammy keywords. And also make sure you're using alt text for your images. That is what shows if people are not loading images. It tells the recipient server a little bit about that image, and don't use that in a spammy type of way to kind of get around some of the filtration systems. So look at these items before you hit send. And now we're going to move on what you need to do after you hit send.
Yeah, and Hank, before we move on, I actually want to just give one additional reminder, which is everybody should always be testing. I don't care if you're using a third-party tool like Kickbox or Email and Asset or Litmus or anything like that to test your emails, or if you're just sending a test message to an address that you own somewhere, really just check that out, right? Make sure that all the links are working, make sure the content is correct, make sure there's no typos in the subject line, things like that. It's just so important. It's something that people kind of tend to forget to do, but it really is super important for every email that you're sending.
When Lauren and I started this webinar today, we said we're going to talk to you about, the anatomy of email delivery. Like what happens when you send an email? I love to correlate what happens to when you send a letter. What happens when you want to send a letter via mail, right? You're going to have a package or you're going to write a letter, right? You're going to get that ready. You're going to put the address on it. You're going to put a stamp on it, and you're either going to drop it in a post box, bring it to the postal service, or just put it in your mailbox and raise the flag, right? And from there, the postal carrier may pick it up if you're not dropping it off. And then what they're going to do is bring it to their local center, and then it arrives in a distribution center. What is really cool is they have machines that look for biohazard items and things that can hurt people. And then also they're going to check the zip code and sort accordingly. And then from there, what they're going to do is get it ready and prepare it to go out to the next distribution center / local mail carrier location. Then if it's over 200 miles, they're going to use a plane and they're going to fly it. If it's under, they're going to use a truck. And then from there, it's at your local provider's location, your local post office, gets loaded on a truck, and they deliver it to your home or the recipient's address, which is really cool. And if you noticed, as we were talking here, there's some similarities to what happens with email, like the checks for things that are negative or bad or harmful, right? And sorting and distribution, like segmentation, stuff like that, and who it's going to, what email address. And that's a great example of what happens when you send an email, but there's still a little bit more that happens in the background. And these are some items. And Lauren, I think you said you were going to go over this one, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to. Yeah, I mean, essentially, I mean, if you look at this, this is very similar to kind of the process that Hank was just walking you through. There's all these kind of little checks and balances. I mean, sometimes I even refer to this sort of as like a telephone call, where like the first step is you ring that number, you see if you actually connect to something, then somebody picks up and they say hello, and then you say hi, so and so there, and it's kind of this back and forth situation. And really, it works that way, where there's just all these little things that are happening in between. It's not as simple as you just kind of hitting send and it going. It really is a conversation that's happening between you and the receiving servers to get that mail delivered. And it includes the authentication. They're checking your sender reputation on those IPs, the domains, on all this other stuff. They're checking the content. All of this stuff is happening. Honestly, it's a little bit quicker than the postal service. The carbon footprint is definitely a bit better, I would say. And it's happening. It's one of those, like, sometimes there can be delays in delivery, but truly all of these steps could happen in a matter of milliseconds. So it's a very quick system, but there's a lot of noise, a lot of events that are happening, a lot of event data that's being pushed around that makes this a lot more complicated than it first seems. So once you get a successful delivery or not, I mean, essentially, you're going to end that delivery attempt with a response that tells you if it was successful. And that's coming directly from the receiving network, right? So if you're trying to send an email to somebody at Gmail, Gmail is going to be the one that delivers that feedback back to you. And it usually starts with a series of numbers and then also provides some additional details to kind of help you understand what might have gone wrong or right with that message. So generally speaking, a 250 or anything in that range means that everything's good. The message has been delivered. It's 250 okay. It's a successful delivery, and that is awesome. And that's really the end of the story, right? There is kind of two sorts of delivery issues that you might see. So something is in like the 400 series. So it might not just be exactly 400, but it could be 421 or a 440 or something like that. As well as a 500. The 400 is kind of more of a temporary issue. So probably you can kind of fix what went wrong, or the receiving side can kind of fix their servers and accept mail again, and then everything will work. The 500 series messages are the ones that are more of kind of a permanent failure. So in these cases, it's really kind of an address that really just doesn't exist, or something where really you shouldn't try to attempt to deliver that again. So I think that's something to kind of figure out there. When we're moving in, I just want to kind of just dive a little bit deeper, just to give you guys a little bit of sense of how many different bounce responses can actually be out there, right? So when you have that message that's not successfully delivered, you're going to get that bounce back. And I was just mentioning that you've got that 400 series or the 500 series, and then there's kind of a bunch of extra stuff in there, right? The receiving service might actually also include some kind of alphanumeric codes in there that are going to mean nothing to you at all. So don't try to figure them out, but they do mean a whole lot to the receiving network if you're trying to kind of reach out to them to figure out why the message isn't delivered or request a mitigation or something like that. That information is really essential to them. So make sure you're including that. But hopefully at the end, you will see somewhere in there that there is some human language that hopefully you can understand as a person. Things like bad mailbox. That's a pretty simple, clear-cut one. There's one in here somewhere that's, message not delivered to the user without prior approval. So I think that one's very, very clear. In other cases, it might just kind of say something to the effect of, well, here we see one that just says other. We see ones that just say message rejected due to spam, right? Spam content. Maybe it says spam content. That's great, but there can be kind of a lot of kind of ambiguity to these messages. So it really is important to put all the different aspects together. But even just looking at this sheet, this is just a fraction of the bounce messages that actually live in the wild. And if you think about this, if you can imagine how many different email destinations are out there, right? There's the Gmails and the Hotmails of the world. Then there's educational and corporate domains and other domains that you've never even heard of. All of these companies, all of these IT admins technically have the ability to create their own bounce message, and they should follow the 400, the 500 series and kind of have that align with the standards, but sometimes they don't. So you might see some stuff that just does not make sense to you. And in those cases, that's where you kind of need to question the data and really just kind of dig deeper, look at the other signals within your data. And again, we'll talk about that a bit more in the next couple of slides.
Awesome. I know what you're thinking. Another diagram? Hank said this was going to be entertaining. He's a digital marketing infotainer. Why is there another diagram on the screen? If you'd rather talk about pizza toppings, we can totally change the subject. We can unmute everybody and talk about pizza toppings, but I think we're all here to talk about email deliverability. Hopefully that's true. Let me know, because we can shift if we want, it's majority rules. But let's take a look at what happens once the email is actually received by the server. And the left side is kind of where everything happened with the SPF record, the DKIM already, and the recipient said, hey, it's okay, come on in, we're going to accept your email. Doesn't stop there, folks. What's happening is there's going to be those spam filter traps, right? And they're going to look at the keywords. They're going to look at your other items and your text to image ratio. And from there, what they're going to do is say, hey, should we send this to the recipient's inbox or to the spam folder? And it's going to decide what's going on. And it's going to be your reputation, it's going to be the content, it's going to be the frequency. Gmail has this whole digital fingerprint on you, whether you know it or not, of you as a sender. It looks, breathes, acts, and sounds like you. It's going to say, we have this fingerprint because it's coming from this IP range, it's coming from this domain, it's got this type of content, this frequency they normally send. So this is what we should do with it. And this is what our users have done with these emails in the past. That's why it's important to talk about email deliverability, because you're spending money to use a provider to send email. You want to convert more, so more people that get your email into the inbox and you have good content, you'll get more conversions. that's why we have to use charts sometimes, folks, but let's make them fun, right? Next, let's talk about measuring your results.
All right. Yes, because in order to truly optimize ROI from email, you need to spend some time reviewing your data, getting to know your email audience, and setting a baseline for what your success is going to look like. Because without measurement, it's really hard to identify where there's going to be the most room for improvement within your email program. So make sure that you're reviewing your positive email metrics, such as opens and clicks, as well as those negative reactions and metrics that are coming from your recipients, such as spam complaints, unsubscribes, as well as any bounces that are coming through, right? The hard bounces, those invalid addresses, as well as like a soft bounce, which typically would be a block by the mailbox provider. So you want to look out for all of that kind of stuff. There's a really fine balance that's needed between the positive interaction that comes from your users and the negative interaction. And mailbox providers are looking at both of that. So you need to be looking at that as well. So, it's best to view your stats regularly, really like check those, not to say every day or every hour, like maybe I do, but really do it regularly so that you can get used to what a typical open and click rate might be, what your spam complaint rate might look like on a typical basis, and also be sure that you're tracking your metrics over time, right? Extend the date range and check out those graphs tracking your progress over the last couple of months or year or whatever. You're looking to help spot the problematic trends really early, right? So hopefully by looking at that larger view, as well as just how your campaign today did, you'll be able to see that things are kind of tracking upwards, they're kind of staying about even, or maybe they're trending downwards over time. Maybe you see that something kind of fell off a cliff at some point, which is always scary. So you want to make sure that you're kind of tracking that stuff. And a really quick little tip, typically mailbox providers will send your mail to the spam folder first. They really don't like to block mail outright unless it's pretty bad stuff. So you really, by tracking those trends and getting ahead of that, you should be able to kind of catch some problematic issue before it really turns into a problem where you're getting blocked. So I think that's really key for people to remember. We've shared some industry specific benchmarks for you on the screen to give you an idea if you're not really sure what's going on. But if you're not seeing these kind of results or you don't see your industry listed here, do not worry, because really industry benchmarks can be helpful when you're comparing performance against other brands that are in your industry, or when you don't have any idea what is considered good. But it really is most important to review your own data and compare your past and your current performance, as well as what you think you're going to expect in the future, right? This is truly much more important than comparing yourself to others via benchmark reports. Those are really great, but your best competitor is actually your past self. You're not trying to beat the other guy. You're trying to just do better than you did yesterday and kind of show incremental growth, right? So use your own data to understand what content recipients are liking the most, how often you should be contacting them. If you start to see that your open rates are slipping or your complaints are a little high when you send more often, slow down the frequency, right? Something like that. Also figure out when to cut people from your list. For all of these metrics, make sure that you're following the history to know if you're kind of staying consistent over time or if you are trending upwards or downwards in some way. All right, and then a couple of other important points to kind of call out here. I want to make sure, first of all, that your KPIs are lining up with your goals for email. So really kind of step back from your process. Don't just jump in and try to kind of achieve the highest open rates that you can get. Really figure out what is your goal, right? Is it just to get more visibility for your brand? Is it actually to drive sales directly from the email? Is it to get somebody to kind of just get richer with your product because it's a paid service and you want them to kind of upgrade to a paid service? Whatever that goal is, build backwards and kind of make sure that whatever you're tracking really matches that, so that when you're saying, hey, we had a really great success today on the campaign, what does that mean? Is that conversions, or is that really, again, just kind of a high open rate? Again, make sure that you're reviewing all of your metrics, not just one or two that you find the most important, because it's great to have high opens and clicks, but if you also generated a spam complaint rate that's 2 or 3 times your normal, that is going to affect future deliverability, right? You don't want the messages going to spam just because you had an overly aggressive, kind of sales offer or something like that. And then the third one really is, to track those trends over time versus just reviewing a one-off campaign, right? This is really how you're going to be able to understand the bigger picture, the full picture, as opposed to, again, just kind of, was this good? Was this bad? Did people like my subject line? Did I go to the spam folder, the inbox? There's too many questions to answer when you're looking at just one specific campaign. So you got to go a little bit bigger.
All right, we talked about what you need to do before and then after you hit send, but let's talk about some items that you need to do all the time, the bare bones. And I know we got one bit of feedback from one person that's listening today that says, you and Lauren are talking really fast. Can you slow down? Well, number one, we got a lot of content to get through. And then number two, Lauren and I are high energy, but I bet, and I know once this is on YouTube, I think you could play it back at like half speed or 3/4 speed, and we will slow down so that you can really absorb the content. If that's your speed, go for it. Hopefully that'll be set up in YouTube in a day or so, but sorry for our high energy, but we love and we have a passion for this type of content. All right.
I try to talk slower. I swear I do.
Let's talk about being popular, right? Not just being popular when you're in a pizza parlor, but popularity in the inbox. Lauren's got some great info about that.
Yeah, and I think this is a really I'm glad we're bringing this one up because you're not the only person who's trying to reach your subscribers, and I'm sure you know that, but I think it's something to just remember. People have a finite amount of time within their day, and they're trying to get through whatever their tasks are, their job. Maybe they've got kids or family members that they're trying to take care of. They've got a lot of things that they're doing, and they have a limited amount of time to spend within their inbox. So you really have to make sure that you kind of stand out, right? Email volumes have been growing steadily for many, many years, and business is literally booming in 2020 thanks to the shifts in marketing strategies that were caused by the pandemic and just all the other craziness that has happened this year. I wish I could just tell you to send great emails and then we could just end this webinar early, or maybe just switch over and actually start talking about pizza for the rest of it. But truly, that success from email and deliverability requires you to excel at lots of different things, right? Imagine it like spinning plates everywhere and you're kind of just running around and you're spinning those plates. But one of the best ways to succeed really is by building a loyal base of subscribers who have been trained to know that opening an email from you will benefit them every single time, right? It doesn't matter if you're teaching them something, if you are giving them a sale on something that they want to buy, if you're just making them laugh, they need to have some kind of benefit and know that they can rely on that in the future. Because when you're able to do that, those other emails that are in your recipient's inbox really won't stand a chance. You're going to get the first bid. So that's something that a lot of people kind of forget about. All right, so I think we should kind of jump into subscriber acquisition next, because this is really kind of where everything starts. I like to think of this as sort of like one of the main pillars of success with email. It's foundational. It's super important because the acquisition strategy, first of all, actually does need to align with your goals with email. I think this is, again, I kind of touched upon this just a couple of minutes ago, but permission is so important, and so is setting expectations with your new subscribers, right? You need to tell them how often you plan to send to them, what type of email content they're going to receive from you. And if it's multiple, kind of try to summarize all of those so that they understand that it's going to be probably a lot of volume. Over at Kickbox, we actually just released an episode this week of our email deliverability unfiltered video series, which is all about permission, the importance of getting permission before you send to recipients. And this one is just of utmost importance. So check that out. It's with Skylar Hollaback from Pardot and Salesforce Marketing Cloud. She's awesome. But yeah, so getting that permission, setting the expectations. I would say in general, when you're trying to grow your list, avoid purchase lists as much as possible, and avoid those growth hacks, because really you want to focus on growing a list of subscribers who really want to be there and will find value in the email content you're sending. Like, it sounds great to say my list is 1 million subscribers, but if you're only actually engaging on a regular basis, if only about 25,000 of them ever open or click or do anything with your brand, what are the rest doing except for just kind of making your numbers look awesome? So you really focus on those goals with email. When it comes to your forms and your sign up forms and things, there are a couple of methods to kind of improve that list collection practice. So first of all, I want to recommend CAPTCHAs or some sort of sign up form protection for all of you. It could be a CAPTCHA or an invisible CAPTCHA or all kinds of different things, but it really does need to be something to help prevent bot signups, right? Also, you could consider a double opt-in process. This is kind of like that quality over quantity approach, because it requires users to confirm that they're interested before you start sending them more emails, right? They need to confirm their email address and say, yes, I did sign up, and kind of take an action to confirm that. But you can also use real-time verification at the point of capture, which is kind of what we're leading up to on this screen on the next. There's lots of customers that come to us at Kickbox to clean up a problematic list, right? They come when their list is really big. And while we can help with that, we do that every single day. That's part of our business. This is really, it's not the best way to grow your list or to optimize your deliverability. I would really recommend that everybody does verification, real-time verification on the front end, right? This allows you to capture a valid email address, reducing that hard bounce rate, which is awesome for deliverability. But it also gives you that opportunity to connect with every potential lead who legitimately showed interest in your brand and attempted to give you an email address, right? So this is good for your return on investment with email because you're growing your list with interested people, right? So on the screen, you can see that we've got this stat. If this stat is true, 95% of visitors are going to come to your website only once. Ugh. Then figure implementing a tool that allows you to avoid losing some of those kind of missed signups that come from typos. That just feels like a no-brainer to me, right? Like, I don't know what your lifetime value is for an email recipient. It doesn't matter if it's $10 or $1,000. Missing connections with even just a handful of those potential customers every day or every week could amount to a lot of missed revenue every year. And I honestly think in 2020, none of us can really kind of go for that. So, check us out. Maybe see if real-time verification is a fit for your brand.
Great. You're collecting email addresses and you're starting to build lists and you're going to do wonderful things. But what you need to do is build trust and start a relationship with your audience. And there's no better way than by sending a welcome email that should be sent out right away, not 2-3 days later, a week later. People may forget that they signed up to receive your emails, forget who you are, delete, unsubscribe, or mark your message as spam whenever they receive your emails. That's why it's very important to start that relationship off right to help with the future engagement of the rest of your campaigns. Look at Caribou Coffee here. They're giving you a 20% coupon for signing up, a free drink for your birthday, and they're just telling you how it works to be in their ecosystem. And I think this one is very well done. I don't know about you, but I love free drinks on my birthday and free meals. On my birthday, I get a lot of emails around my birthday from restaurants that give me a free or at least a discounted meal, which is very awesome. Then when we look at Michael's here, they're also giving a coupon and they're helping set the expectations of what's going to happen when you receive emails from them. And these are both kind of B2C type of examples. And I wanted to give you a B2B example, and it's from Litmus, which is an email testing tool. It allows you to see your email in different types of email clients. Pretty cool tool. Woo, you're in. They're welcoming you to the family and they're giving you a guide. And number one, they're just welcoming you to the family and they're giving you something. You see that common theme there. You want to make sure that you're number one, welcoming people to your list as soon as possible. And number two, maybe give them some information, something for free, or just tell them, hey, we're going to send you an email once a week or once a month so that folks can expect it. And then next thing is you're sending emails like your welcome email and others. You want to pay attention to your subject lines. Personalization is a huge thing right now, and I don't think enough marketers are using it effectively. You can use personalization in the subject line as well as the body. People kind of know that it's being done automatically, but I don't know about you, but when somebody calls my name, I like it. I also like to put it in the body of the email. So hello, Hank, comma, blah, 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 blah. Hank, comma, we remember you like really cool shoes and I've seen you wear some at conferences. It kind of makes me feel like they're talking to me in a way. Use that. Psychologically, it works, folks. Use action words in your subject line. Nobody wants to have FOMO or the fear of missing out. You want to make sure you put act now, limited time sale, going away Thursday. Use those action words to get people to act on your emails to get that open, but don't disappoint them with the content. Make sure that the length is about 6 to 10 words because otherwise it may not show up the way you want to in the inbox. It might get cut off. People might not really understand what you're trying to tell them. And Lauren mentioned earlier, make sure you're split testing. Take a list of people you're going to send to, use 10% of that list and send them version A, take another 10%, send them version B, see which one wins after 24 to 48 hours, then send that winning email out to the remaining 80% of your list. I had a client that told me once, I don't know why all email marketers do not do split testing because it's like getting free opens with every send. Totally agree with that client. And I can't leave this slide without giving you a pro tip. There's something called pre-header text, folks. If you don't know what this is, know what it is, learn about it. To me, pre-header is like what Robin is to Batman. They make up the dynamic duo, and it's a great pair. Look at the examples here. In bold, you see the subject line. The next to that, that's not bold, is your pre-header text. So someone might send me an email and say, all sneakers on sale with free shipping. And then maybe the pre-header text says we have floral designs in stock because I have a pretty cool pair of Converse that has a floral design and maybe they're worn out and I want to buy a new pair. It allows you to get more real estate in the inbox, folks. Use that pre-header. Do not use, cannot view this email, please view online or click here to view online. Don't use that.
Yes.
And that's pretty much it for subject lines. So let's move into segmentation now.
Yeah, and quickly, I just want to kind of call it as well. We were talking about expectation setting with subject lines, and this one is another great thing too. Like if like Hank already mentioned that, like if you include free in all capital in your subject line, that's actually okay as long as what you're giving away is free, right? Don't over promise and then under deliver, and they've realized that it's free with a purchase of $100 or something like that. That is going to lead to negative sentiment. They're going to unsubscribe. They're going to mark your mail as spam, or it's just going to kind of anger them, right? So really just make sure that whatever you're saying in that subject line really matches up with whatever offer is in there as well.
So let's talk about segmentation, folks. And this is a filtered view of your email list. It basically means you have a list of people, and maybe you collect what city they live in. And I want to pick on Raleigh, North Carolina. I'm going to make a segment of people that live in Raleigh, North Carolina. It's a filtered view of my list. And according to the DMA, marketers have found a blank % increase in email revenue from segmenting their campaigns. Folks, did you know there was going to be a test today? Because there is. Question and answers, folks. Go in that section. Let me know what percentage do you think you should have if you use segmentation effectively. Neil says 25%. Come on, folks. Come on. I know I got some competitive folks here today. 25% is the first guess.
A little higher. Keep it
little
going.
Higher, little higher. All right, 45, 40, 75. Catherine says 45. Let's try triple digits, folks. I need at least one answer for triple digits and we'll give you the answer. 94, getting close and higher, but keep going. 110. All right, folks, I wish I could see your faces right now. I really do. And I think actually there's some technology now that allows you to see the audience when it's virtual. Maybe I'll have to use that next time because you should see a 760% increase if you send the right people the right email. Think about that. If you could segment based on actions, desires, location, geographics, or whatever, you can actually convert more. So let's talk about segmentation and what I consider to be the 4 pillars of segmentation. First one is going to be geographic, and that's going to be where people live. Where are they? What city do they live in? What country do they live in? Maybe I want to target them specifically because I have events in those areas. Then we have demographics. Who are they? What age are they? What gender? What type of income do they have? What's their occupation? And what's their education level? Because maybe my product or service targets those demographics. Then we have psychographic. This is my favorite. Lifestyle, values, concerns, personality, attitudes, and AIO, activities, interests, and opinions. Now, you might say, well, Hank, I've always been taught I really only need an email address and a first name to start a relationship with someone via email marketing, and I shouldn't really ask for more unless my business dictates. How do I get all of this information? True. If you have a form on your site and you're just trying to sell me sneakers, I'm not going to let you know my favorite color, my children's names, last year's tax amount, my blood type. I will not give you that information. I'll probably leave your website. I'll be part of those 95% that just came once and never come back. What you can do is use surveys. Survey your folks and tell them you're looking for this data to give them better emails. They'll probably give you that information. And the last one is behavioral. What are people doing and not doing? Are people clicking? Are they not clicking? Are they visiting your website? Are they giving you certain signals? And then treat your VIPs like you would people that are not opening. Maybe you're trying to give all of these discounts to people that are not opening, but what are you doing to people that actually give you a lot of business? Are you treating them accordingly? My favorite example here is looking at people that don't open your emails and resending that email with a different subject line. That'd be a great example of behavioral-based segmentation. And also make sure you're developing personas for your marketing. You may have one, you may have 20 different types of personas, but let's look at an example company that has 2 personas. We have Sally, she's a female, she likes being outdoors, she cooks at home, and she lives on the West Coast, maybe near Lauren. And then we have Sam, and he's on the East Coast, he eats out often and loves technology. He's like me, a techno nerd. Would I want to send Sally an email about the latest Apple processor that they just put into their new MacBooks? Boy, do I want one. At 9 a.m. Eastern time? Probably not. Maybe if she's looking for a gift, she may find it because it's going to be early her time. Maybe she'll act on it. But if I sent that email to Sam, he's going to be more apt to engage with that email. So develop your personas or who you're marketing to so that you can make segments based on that data. And today's consumer is more empowered than ever. Maybe more than 10 years ago, more than 20 years ago, things have changed because people have mobile devices. They have this little thing that they can pull out of their pocket and look up information wherever they are, whenever they want to. They know how to do it. They're going to tap into their friends and their networks, their professional networks. They're going to look at Facebook. They're going to look at Yelp. They know where to go to get the cheapest price, to get the best quality, or maybe superior support. They're also going to be very vocal. If they have a good experience with you, they're going to give you a good rating. They're going to review you and give you 5 stars. But maybe they had a bad meal if you're a restaurant owner, and they're going to go ahead and give you a bad review and maybe 1 or 2 stars. Think about how empowered today's consumer is because they're committed. They're committed to give you their dollars in turn for quality, service, support, you name it. They can also do it anywhere in the world. I can be in the US and send something to someone in the UK. I could be in the UK and plan a vacation in the US, hopefully next year, maybe. And last, we're all concerned. This is something I've recently started talking about with the pandemic. Everybody's concerned about keeping their job, losing their job. Maybe they don't have a job. Maybe they're not making enough money. There's so many things to be concerned about in today's environment, making marketing a tougher job and so much harder to get people to convert. And that's why I feel email marketing is the best marketing channel because you can use something called marketing automation to help you automate your processes because what you want to do is convince the right people to need what you provide at the right time. So using segmentation and automation together, it's going to be a win-win. You can nurture people with a sequence of emails, maybe a welcome sequence, welcome, and then there's going to be another email that goes through some other items. We're going to go over an example in a moment. Don't forget to use personalization. Already went over that. And then it helps you save time. Automation allows you to automate a lot of the processes that you're doing manually right now. Let's look at an idea here. So maybe we want to gather an audience of people. What are we going to do right away, folks? Send that welcome message. We're going to send that day 0 or right away. Wait 2 days and send an emotional appeal email. This is where you say, please buy from me, please. No, I'm just kidding. This is where you put in information about your company and what you mean to the community or to your customers, maybe information about your support or customer service. You're going to appeal to their emotions and make them want to have a relationship with you and more importantly, buy from you. Then maybe you're going to send a differentiator email on day 5, and this is going to be information around how you're different from your competitors and why they should work with you. Then jab, 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 right hook. If you don't have the book by Gary Vaynerchuk, jab, 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 right hook, buy it because you should be giving value, 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 ask for the sell. And that's what we're doing here. On day 7, we're offering an incentive to convert, and that can be a coupon code.
Okay, quickly just want to touch upon list hygiene because this is of course also important to having a better inbox placement rate. You want to regularly and very quickly after somebody takes an action, remove any addresses that have hard bounce, unsubscribe, been flagging your messages as spam. If you send through an ESP, it'll probably help you with this, but it's essential that you're making sure that it's happening. So check your stats for that. And also have some kind of sunset policy in place for your contacts that are not engaging with your emails, right? This doesn't have to mean you suddenly just stop emailing them after a certain time period, but consider reducing the frequency at which you send to them or sending some kind of re-engagement campaign to sort of win them back, right? Make that last ditch effort to gain their attention and then just let them go if they're not responding, right? Maybe make that call to a phone number if you have it to see if you can kind of figure out if they're getting your mail or not. But once you know that there's a certain contact, you really want to just focus on the people that don't really care about your emails and then cut everybody else from the list. And then much like a credit score, moving on to the next slide, there we go. There are, just remember this back when Hank was talking about it earlier, there are so many factors to consider, right, with your credit score. How long is your history? Have you behaved and paid all of your bills on time? Have you kept your debt low, which is similar to kind of user complaints and bounces? You may have built up a great credit rating over the past several years, but if you stop paying your bills, if you start racking up debt and defaulting on your loans, that credit score is going to drop very quickly. And much like that credit score, if your deliverability metrics go off the rails, you're going to start to see that your mail is going to go to the spam folder and eventually you're going to end up getting blocked. So you really want to stay ahead of that.
Now, I know everybody probably wants to go get some pizza, some food or whatever, or the hour is up and you have another meeting, this is going to be recorded, folks. You can catch the recording. And also, I know there's a lot of questions. We didn't even get to the questions yet. Certain ones we're going to reply to directly. We'll give you an email. Think about that, an email from Lauren and Hank. Awesome. And then what we'll also do is maybe put together like a common frequently asked questions document to send to everybody that if it's relative. But we'll get your answers to you as soon as possible, and we'll work with you one-on-one if we need to. But hey, if you could stick around, folks, we're going to have some fun right now because we have some Mythbusters. I want to play a game with Lauren, and I want to ask her some questions or talk about a topic, and we're going to determine if they're myths or not. And you could participate as well. I hope you could stick around, but I understand if you can't, and you can always catch the replay because it will be live forever on YouTube, or at least until it's pulled down. So let's get started. So Lauren, let me ask you this. I was told that if I send text-only emails to my recipients, it's going to help game the system and improve my deliverability. Is that true or false?
That is not true. No, that is a false one. Really the best recommendation is to send both types. I mean, there are certain people who, especially if you have your content optimized for an HTML experience, there are certain people that are going to want to see all the pretty pictures and colors and all the beautiful design that you put into that email. Other people are going to want that text version. There's also, a portion of your list that's not going to have images turned on by default. And so they might be seeing the text version until they decide to load that. So it really is best to kind of send both, give them that opportunity to decide and kind of look at that content in the way that's best for them. Because ultimately the goal is to give them value, to make them enjoy that email, not to do what's best for you.
Great advice. Now, this one's one of my favorites. Lauren, I send emails and I find my emails always go to the promotion tab, but I want to be in a primary tab. And I hear there may be ways for me to force my emails to go into the primary tab in Gmail where they're going to see it, act on it, love me, and give me all their money. Is that true or false?
Yeah, so I guess I would like to throw this back to you for a second. I mean, I guess, can you tell me what those ways are? Because I can tell you, I've been in email for a long time. I actually worked for a company who part of our job was literally just to kind of figure out how to kind of overcome this. So we were trying everything from different from names every single time, using the same one, trying to have a good reputation, trying to do this and that. It doesn't work. If you figure, Gmail system is very sophisticated. It's working in real time as well, and then really, so it's whatever anecdotal success that you have that tries to get you into that primary tab is only going to be short-lived because their filters do change so often. But I think more importantly, just think about the mindset of the recipients that you're sending to, right? When you look at your primary tab, what do you think about, right? Emails from your friends, your relatives, things that you have flagged as being really important. Maybe it's something from your doctor's office or reminders of appointments or things like that. If you all of a sudden just see a rogue marketing sales offer that's kind of coming out of nowhere, that's sitting between an email from your grandma and your sister, you're probably not in the right frame of mind to get that offer. Whereas when you're in the promotions tab, if you actually take that time to go there, you are in a mode where you're looking for marketing offers. You're potentially looking to buy something. You're in the mind frame to kind of be pitched to, if you will. And in that sense, you actually see that the conversion rates are actually higher when you're in that promotions tab. Of course, if you're sending email that's not a promotion, if it's not a marketing email, maybe you should try to figure out ways to push it to the primary tab or to the updates tab. But I think it really is important to just kind of remember, people don't really want to receive that stuff when they're in that right frame of mind. So it might just lead to more spam complaints. So really, just don't game the system. Don't waste your time. Focus on something else, anything else really. Yeah.
You and I are in the same mindset, and I've said some of the exact same words, and there's reasons why those tabs exist. I think the biggest way a while back was to ask your recipients to move it to the primary folder, either by dragging it there or starring it multiple times, all these different crazy ways. And I remember a conference where Matt Cutts, who used to work with Gmail when it was really early on, I forgot exactly what he said, but he just said, if you're trying to game the system to get more of your emails to the primary tab, he just said, just don't do it. And coming from him, and if you know anything about him, that sentence meant a lot. He's just saying, we'll punish you if you do, I'm thinking is what he was saying there. But yeah, that was the way. But like you said, the algorithm changed, and probably from years ago now, if somebody forces the email there, they're going to say like, they're not really engaging it once it's in the primary tab, and they're probably going to move it back to the promotions down the road anyway. So this one is an oldie but goodie for me, and I love to talk about this one because marketers still say I'm in the promotion tab and I don't want to be with other promoters.
Yeah, and also consider the fact that a lot of people don't even have the tabs view, right? If you're using the native app on your iPhone, for example. If you're using certain browsers, if you just didn't turn it on, there's a very small percentage of people who actually are using the tabbed inbox. So even that figure, you're chasing this ever elusive primary tab inbox placement when a lot of people don't even have a concept of what that view is. They still just see things in a normal inbox. And so your stuff is still just going in between grandma and sister anyway, right?
So let's talk about this one now. The use of deceptive or misleading subject lines can help you get more engagement on your campaigns. True or false?
Okay, so this one is a bit of both. I would actually say that this is true. It will boost engagement with your emails, but my question is it the right kind of engagement, right? Because figure, maybe you guys have seen some of these tactics, right? When you maybe use that little RE, or there was one that I saw recently where they used a from name that looked kind of as if it was like, it included me and then like, the person who was sending. So they were kind of trying to look like we had already had this conversation that was started. Things like that, or again, if something is, you're saying it's free, but it's not really free. All of those tactics are going to get somebody to open the message. Same thing if you use a very ambiguous subject line, right? It's just like special offer. People are always going to be wondering, ooh, what's that special offer? But in the meantime, as they're going to click on it, they're getting really, really excited and they're like, oh, well, what is this? And their mind is going to places that you cannot imagine. And by the time they get there and realize that it's just the same boring marketing offer that you've sent in the past, just with a snappier headline, they are going to be angry. And then therefore, you'll get that open, but you're likely also going to get a negative reaction after that fact, such as them marking it as spam, because they're just like, ugh, that's not what I thought it was. That's disappointing, right? So yeah, a little bit of both.
That kind of correlates to what you said about purchasing lists. If I was to go take a walk in my neighborhood, because I can't really go out anywhere because of the pandemic, but I see a gentleman walking up to me in a trench coat and he opens it up and he says, psst, email lists, $100 for 5 million. And I
Wow.
might think that's a great deal. I might buy it and I might send to it. You know what? I might get a lot of conversions from that one send, a lot of bounces, spam complaints too, but I might get a lot of conversions. But what I'm doing is hurting my sender reputation because of those bounces, spam complaints, and unsubscribes. It's just not worth it. Same thing with deceptive subject lines. You want to get people to trust you, know you, trust you, and then convert. That's pretty much what it comes down to.
Exactly. Yeah, it's that balancing act, right? It's like you really, in order for consistent inbox placement, you want to focus on having as many positive interactions from recipients as possible, as well as many negative and like less negative interactions. So it really is just send them stuff that delights them and makes them happy and gives them value, and then they'll be likely to engage positively and not negatively.
Well, that was fun. I think a lot of folks stuck around for that, and that's good. I'm glad they can always catch it in a recording, but that was fun. I want to do that more often. But let's remind folks why we're here today.
Yeah, okay. Well, I want to say, first of all, before you're sending, right, we want to make sure that we're always testing. There are a lot of things that can go wrong, from the IP and domain reputation to authentication issues to all kinds of stuff, right? So before you hit send, you want to check for issues that you can quickly fix, right? Such as the content, right? If you have some broken images or some typos in there, if there's an authentication error that you can fix pretty quickly as well. And you also just want to be aware of bigger issues with your IP and domain reputation that can factor into your decision-making process for your future campaigns. Maybe you realize that you really do need to segment or include more personalization, or figure out a better way to clean your list, something like that. So all of that is stuff that you should consider before you hit send. Moving over to the next after, we hope that by now you have a better understanding of how the delivery process for an email works. It's not as simple as just hitting send. so that's the most important takeaway, I think, for this section. But also regularly monitor your email performance as well as those larger trends, so that you can spot issues early on and tackle them. And then all of the time, I think some of the things that you want to focus on are following best practices that align with your goals with email and that help you optimize your inbox placement and recipient engagement, because these are the things that really, really are going to help you in terms of proving that email ROI and hitting the inbox consistently. Also, keep an open mind and allow your email performance to guide your strategy. If something that you're doing isn't working, maybe something that worked in the past, but now those results are just not the same, then identify the weakest links in your email program and then get to optimizing however that might work, right? So these are all things that you really want to focus on. And then once you've nailed the basics, consider ways that you can take advantage of powerful tools such as email automation, segmentation, and personalization to just really up your game a little bit.
And this is where we move to Q&A. And my subject line to you is, be kind, be patient. We have all the questions, and there's a lot of them. We're going to go through, we're going to curate them, we're going to give you the best possible answer. It may show up in your inbox, it may show up as a link to a blog article for FAQs from this information. And I know one of them was, will this slide deck be shared? We'll try to get that on SlideShare, but this will be on YouTube in a couple days. But both Lauren and I really want to thank you for being here today. I think we did not put anybody to sleep. I'm looking forward to trying pizza with different toppings. I think I got as much value out of this as the audience did, but you're the judge of that. So let us know how we did. Check us out on the socials, Kickbox Campaigner. I'm Hank Hoffmeyer. You can email me, hank@j2.com. Lauren, how can folks get in touch with you and Kickbox?
Yeah. So feel free to email me. I'm just Lauren@kickbox.com. Go to kickbox.com's website if you're interested in checking out our product line, or connect with me on social. I'm on Twitter and LinkedIn pretty regularly, so I'd love to connect with you there and just see what content you've got and share what I've got. So yeah, thanks so much, everyone.
Until then, folks, try something new, whether it's toppings on your pizza or with your email marketing. Have a great day, everybody.